the right tab.
Yeah. The amount of Bitcoin wallets with over 1,000 Bitcoin has absolutely skyrocketed. I mean, oh man. Uh, so the
That's
amount of
one.
Bitcoin wallets has absolutely skyrocketed. The billionaires across the globe are scooping up Bitcoin sold by the German government. And another business giant got back into the Bitcoin game. We'll get all into this and more. But first, let's dive into the billionaires scooping up all the Bitcoin. So, Luke, what do you think about all this? Seeing this absolutely parabolic chart of the amount of Bitcoin wallets having over 1,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, so these people are front running the people we're about to discuss. The largest fintech company in the world that processes $1 trillion of payments and has a $63 billion market cap has just done a Bitcoin backflip. We're definitely going to talk about them today. But the chart you're watching on screen right now is huge, okay? I like to point out to people that yes, it's gone parabolic since 2024. So this is showing you that there are new whales getting into Bitcoin. So this is tracking the new Bitcoin addresses that have over 1,000 Bitcoin in them, okay? And yes, it's gone parabolic in 2024, but look how it's kind of creeping up in late 2022. As the price of Bitcoin was going down, the smart money started accumulating Bitcoin in a really big way. So these are new whales. These are not old guys who mined Bitcoin in 2012 or 2013. These are new wallets slowly accumulating. Now this kind of dovetails with the thesis that I have and the belief that, you know, something kind of fundamentally changed in 2020. And this was the beginning of the billionaire race or the billionaire FOMO. And this chart kind of confirms it. So really interesting, really bullish. We talk about it every day, Brandon, don't we? There's, you know, the Wisconsin Pension Fund, the ninth biggest one in America, getting into Bitcoin. We have ETFs in Australia. We have ETFs in Southeast Asia getting into Bitcoin. We have Michael Dell also tweeting about Bitcoin a lot. He's even tweeted about Bitcoin again more recently since we did a video on him a couple of weeks ago, Brandon, which is really interesting. But all these billionaires, we show you the signposts every single week. We try to give you the bullish news and keep you guided and looking at the signal. And this chart here really does represent what we always talk about here on a weekly basis.
100%. And the interesting part about this, right, is Bitcoin's price has been shooting up. So we've gotten Bitcoin at around $64,000. So what does that mean? That means 1,000 Bitcoin is equating to 64 million US dollars in just Bitcoin alone. So I think that that is extremely bullish for what is going forward. And we're also seeing the ETFs still rise up, right? I mean, the ETF spot demand is recovering. Over 16.8 thousand Bitcoin are still going into it. I mean, the demand for this thing is just absolutely insane, and it keeps going up. So I think, you know, the access to money that you know, these billionaires have and that traditional finance has to get into these spot Bitcoin ETFs just keeps on flowing more and more money into Bitcoin. More and more people are getting into it, and more big money is getting into it. Luke, I don't know if you caught this today, but even Mark Cuban flipped a little bit on Bitcoin and started tweeting about it today in a positive light when he was talking about President Trump announcing J.D. Vance, a Vance for refrigeration. Just joking, the little office joke there. But, you know, of all of that there, you know how the president picking the vice president is more of a Bitcoin play on the whole thing. So I think this is absolutely huge. Bitcoin's getting into the mainstream news. They can't ignore it now. We got Trump at the Bitcoin conference here in a week, and they're scooping it up like crazy, front running the news. And there's also rumors that something's going to be announced at the RNC convention tomorrow. So, I mean, with all this and, you know, Stripe, you mentioned it, you teased it at the beginning. A $65 billion payment giant is now starting to accept purchases all across Europe. So not only do we have billionaires getting into Bitcoin, we have Stripe, the giant, getting back into it, right? I mean, you highlighted it there that at first, you know, Stripe launched its first efforts into crypto back in 2014, testing it with Bitcoin. And then it, you know, pulled it back in 2018 when the market got a little bit bearish. And then now, you know, in June 2019, when Facebook started to try to get into it and Mark Zuckerberg tried to get into it with his own crypto token, But now, only was in there for a couple months. And then now, all of a sudden, Stripe is now getting back into the Bitcoin space, and they're the biggest payment market out there. So, not only do we have Jack Dorsey, another huge payment rail with, Square getting into Bitcoin, we have Stripe getting into it too. So I think the payment rail race is on, as well as the billionaire race, as who can scoop up the most Bitcoin. So, Luke, how big do you think that Stripe getting into the Bitcoin market is? I can't hear you, Luke. Oh no, is this me? Luke, I don't know if it's me, but I can't hear you right now. We lost you. A little technical difficulties with Luke here. But yeah, I think that it's absolutely huge. We'll get back to Luke in a second when he figures out his sound. But the last thing I think is like the huge market cap of Stripe, right? It's $65 billion valuated through all of this. So, you see Stripe's valuation here of 20 million in 2011 to 95 billion in 2021. That's an absolute skyrocket over this past decade. And I think we got Luke back here. So Luke, can you hear me now?
It's massive. That's how big Stripe is. Stripe is a very big deal. You caught me there with my shoelaces tied, and I tripped over at the finish line because I just muted myself while you were talking. I unmuted myself, and I thought, I should be fine. But no, my microphone died. So yes, I think it's massive. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but Stripe getting into Bitcoin is massive. Stripe getting into Bitcoin is just another signal, okay? I've even tried to share a little chart of what I think is some signal and what I think is potentially some front running of some people trying to get ahead of these companies like Strike, okay? We have all of these ETF flows, which Brandon showed earlier, increasing right now, which is absolutely massive. We can see it, it's increasing clear as day. And, this is really big. This is really massive. Nobody's paying enough attention to it. And I think, the fact that we have another payments merchant bending the knee to Bitcoin after dumping Bitcoin in 2018, saying, look, we don't like Bitcoin. Bitcoin's too volatile. The transaction fees on Bitcoin are too big. Bitcoin's a poor medium of exchange. For them to come out and flip once again was massive, because they came back into the quote unquote crypto space earlier in the year, okay? But initially in June, when they came back, they said, you know what, we're going to start processing US dollar stablecoin payments, but we're only going to do those on Ethereum, Solana, and Tron. And then a couple of months later, we just got this news about Bitcoin. So it's kind of like, hang on a minute, have they kind of come to the realization that there is no crypto and there is only Bitcoin? I don't know, but I do think that's a really interesting development.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that, as more of these companies come into this space, whether it's the crypto or the Bitcoin space, they're all going to realize it's Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. And they're soon going to be, realizing all of that and kind of coming in and just, at the same time, just focusing directly on Bitcoin. I think everybody in their journey dips their toe into a little shitcoinery, gets into it just a tad bit. But, I think at the end of the day, Bitcoin's the true Trojan horse, and that's what will end up winning in the long run. And, we even see the ETFs have approved major wires too for the Q4 or Q3 and Q4 of this year. So I think that there's even going to be, some more waves coming in later on this year. And I don't think that the money's done yet. I think that we're still going to be scooping up some more Bitcoin, and that traditional finance is still coming. So, you mentioned it, front running some of these companies like Stripe and other things. I think some of these billionaires are getting some inkling that more of these ETF products and more ways to access Bitcoin is coming as well. Because, all these guys with big money, they're all plugged into what's going on there. A little hush, hush, elbow here, and there. They all know what's going on, what's going to happen. And so I think with all that, they're all trying to front run it as well, Luke. I think they're trying to get ready for it, huh?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of hush, hush, elbow amongst all the big boys. I wasn't prepared for that, but that's exactly what goes on amongst the bankers, okay? We haven't done a video on this either. Jamie Dimon, potentially maybe been the Secretary of Treasury for Donald Trump. Again, these are just rumors, just something I heard about on Twitter earlier today. But we know that Jamie Dimon has a very colorful history of bashing Bitcoin for years and years and years, okay? But even this year, he started to slightly change his tone a little bit, and he was even involved a little bit in facilitating some of the ETF Bitcoin transfers, which is very, very interesting. So again, who knows whether Jamie Dimon's going to be a very pro-Bitcoin advocate for Bitcoin if Trump does take him under his wing. But again, this is massive news. We haven't talked about this. Everybody's coming into Bitcoin. Even Banana Man that you mentioned earlier on in the stream, Mark Cuban, who in 2022 said he'd rather own bananas over Bitcoin. And he was a big Dogecoin fan. And he was like, yeah, Bitcoin's cute, but it's old tech. But now, today, it sounds like he maybe changed his tune a little bit. So I think everybody is coming to the realization that Bitcoin is where it's at and crypto is noise.
100%. And, you know, it is funny at the end of the day, right? I mean, we got everybody kind of coming around here, and we got your fans popping into the chat as well, Luke. But, you know, it's awesome stuff to see that, hey, you know, all the plebs, we front ran all these billionaires kind of coming in, right? I mean, we were able to do that, front run the smart money. I think this is probably the first time in history that people of, you know, just average Joes were able to front run the big financial firms, billionaires, and everybody else that they knew, you know, hey, initially, this was something that is going to work and work for the long run too. But I think the truest form of Bitcoin and what is really extremely valuable is just being able to hold your own keys, right? I mean, I think that doesn't get stressed enough. And I think, you know, cold storage is probably the best way that anybody could store their wealth. It's not probably, I know it is. And I know that you can do that in a very easy way by utilizing a foundation device. These are the easiest to use hardware wallets. I've even got mine sitting right next to me. I set mine up within 5 minutes. They've got the great passport. And if you're feeling a little bit worrisome about setting it up yourself, you can go to their concierge service and get a free 1 hour, or not a free 1 hour, but you can get an hour of their time utilizing promo code Green Candle to get 10% or $10 off, excuse me. And then you can go to Stampseed and stamp your seed phrase into titanium. They've got the best products, the best punch plates on the market. You can utilize that and use promo code Green Candle for 15% off there. And then a lot of these topics, I know that we're talking about, we're breaking down a lot of great things here, and some of them might be confusing and daunting. You can utilize Bitcoin trading cards to orange pill your friends and family with their orange pill in the pack. Hell, they've even got some other cool cards that you can collect with great people in the space who have done amazing things. So yeah, Luke, you got anything to add? I see you added something else here. You got a little chart here going of the net ETF inflows. Do you want to dive into this real quick?
Yeah, I mean, look at those puppies increase. It's absolutely massive. Like you say, the plebs are front running the billionaires. My man, Johnny Midas, I don't think he's ever missed one of my live streams. He's been there from the very beginning of my channel. And I know for a fact that he's been front running the billionaires, okay? That's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, okay? Bitcoin is very revolutionary. Bitcoin is very different to most other technological revolutions we've been through. For example, the internet, the little guy couldn't really get in on the internet. There was no real way to value the internet or buy a share of the internet in the early 1990s, even when it was abundantly clear that it was going to transform the world, and it was in its very early stages of adoption, okay? The billionaires essentially were able to profit off the rise of the internet, okay? They were the ones who were making all of these venture deals and, you know, fundraising deals with all of these big public companies in the early 2000s.
Luke, I think we lost you again, man. You've gotten the dead mics here today. I don't know what's going on with you, but you know, you're definitely correct there, right? I mean, if you look at all of these, you know, this chart here, you're seeing that Bitcoin and the billionaires are scooping it up. We've never had an opportunity quite like this, but I think we've got you back here now, Luke. So why don't you get back into it?
I've been talking so much about Bitcoin today that I've flattened 2 different microphones. I've only got 2. Both of them were going flat. I've done 3 live streams back to back today. So I apologize about the technical difficulties. Producer Pam's going to be charging my microphones for me so it doesn't happen again. But yeah, I think it's really big. Like, again, like I was trying to say earlier, during that 2000s .com bubble where all of these technology companies made billions and billions of dollars of money, the little guy did not benefit from that. The little guy could only buy these stocks when they were listed on the stock market at these historically stupid valuations, super, super high valuations, okay? And again, what happened after they were listed on the stock market? Well, we saw the biggest technology crash in history, okay? Tech stocks absolutely dumped after all of the billionaires sold a ton of shares and they made a ton of money from the revolution, okay? But again, this is very different today because today something different has happened. Now, the little guy, the little average sat stacker who's probably watching this live stream, we have front run the billionaires, okay? The billionaires front run us in the 1990s internet revolution, and they dumped on us when their stocks were listed on all sorts of, crazy valuations on all of the public markets. That was when the little guy could first buy them, when they were already historically overvalued. But the tides have turned. And today, you can buy a piece of internet irrespective of what country you're in, irrespective of how much money you have, irrespective of whether you're even allowed to have a Robinhood account. Again, most people underestimate this. They don't understand that the billions of people in Africa or India or China, some of them, it's very hard for them to get access to US public markets and publicly traded stocks and equities and all of these fancy, financial instruments like bonds, money market funds, and all of this. Some of them don't even get a bank account. In El Salvador, 70% of the country has no bank account, but now the tide has turned. Now, if you have a $50 smartphone, you can get access to Bitcoin. And you get the same access to Bitcoin that Mark Cuban gets, Mr. Bananas Man, who thinks he controls the world and thinks he's this big swinging Chad, so to say. Mark Cuban thinks he can make up his own rules. Typically, they get the better deal. So today, Mark Cuban, he probably gets better interest rates. He probably gets more favorable loans, lower interest rates than the average pleb might in Africa or India, or me with my crazy haircut. I'm not getting a better interest rate than Mark Cuban, I'll tell you that much. But all of a sudden, someone in Africa buying $10 of Bitcoin, they have the same rights and the same rules as somebody who owns $10 billion of Bitcoin, okay? So again, that's the revolution of Bitcoin, and that's why I'm so optimistic on Bitcoin, and that's why we do what we do. We're trying to tell as many average sat stackers about Bitcoin as we can before the billionaires buy all the cheap Bitcoin.
100%. And you're not wrong there, right? I mean, the rich get the privilege, and I've always heard, once you get wealthy, you get way more things for free than when you're a little small fish. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense when you kind of say it and line it out like that, but at the end of the day, they're less risky for the bank, so that's how they look at it, right? I mean, they get to move a lot more money and all that kind of thing. So it is interesting, but at the end of the day, everybody gets Bitcoin at the price that they deserve. So that's why the small sat stackers like you guys in the audience and like myself and Luke here with his crazy haircut, why we do what we do out here to help and spread the word of that. But before I let you guys go, I gotta let you know we did just drop a new episode on my Macro Insights channel with Tom Luongo about how Davos has lost control of Bitcoin, Tether, and that entire market. So I put the link up here, so you guys should go check this out immediately after this. And yeah, Luke, thanks for joining us, man. I think I'm bullish going forward, and I think we got a big year ahead.
I'm bullish as well. I'm super bullish on Tom Luongo. If anyone listening hasn't ever listened to Tom Luongo, you have to. He's one of the most fiery Italians I've ever met and one of the most educated people in the Bitcoin space who has some of the most interesting thought experiments and, let's say, theories that I've ever heard. Some people call me a conspiracy theorist, and all I'm going to say is I really tune into Tom when he talks because he brings the data and the facts behind lots of different angles. So definitely recommend that people go check out that interview with Tom.
100%. All right, y'all. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.